Hey y'all, welcome to the Quilting Compound. I'm Jamie and I thought we could make the Connecter Charm Quilt. I showed it to you, I think, last week, and all it uses is 2 charm packs and these strips. This is about a ½ yard of strips and 25. If you want to make the same size that I made, 5.5 by 10.5 inch rectangles. So you will need 25. I actually cut 31 because I just couldn't decide. So whenever I go to hang it up, I'll make my decision then. So if you have a little extra fabric and you just can't make up your mind, you know, you can just place it in and out and see how it works. I do have the quilt right here, and I probably will be pointing it out. These strips right here, I'm going to show you how easy it is to make this quilt. And, you know, I'm all about making it easy. So I had a few comments when I did the other video about the Connecter Charm Quilt here, that people thought it would look good in the Asian inspired fabrics. So just so happens I have some Asian inspired fabrics. So the 2 charm packs, now they're not necessarily Asian, but I think they'll work well. This is Cookie Dough 5 Carat Gems by Wilmington, and it's just 2 of the same. These are just solid black 5-inch strips. I think they're Riley Blake's. The large rectangle prints, some of those are, I'm guessing it would be pronounced Mashiko Bush Clover by Make Hour. I could have butchered every bit of that. I don't know. The other one is Tadishi by P&B Textiles. Not really sure of that pronunciation either. And here, I know this is Koi Fish, but this is Mashiko by Make Hour. I'm not using this one, but it's part of the line. And the other here is NIWA from P&B Textiles. So these are the 2 lines that I'm using, by Make Hour and P&B Textiles. Okay, so we've got, you want to cut your 25, 5.5 by 10 inch rectangle, easy for me to say. Go ahead and I went ahead and cut my strips, and I think my husband's home. Okay, so what we need to do, of course, is open up and let the dust fly off our 5-inch squares here. And now there's 2 ways that you can go about, I've never seen that before, making your 5-inch squares and your strips. You can either cut 5-inch by, this is a 1.5 inch strip, so cut them in 5-inch segments. You're going to need, see, there's 20. What we're going to make first is this right here. So it will be 2 of your 5-inch squares, and you'll have 1 5-inch strip here between it. You can either chain piece and put your strip on and attach each one and go on down the strip, or you can cut 5-inch rectangles through your strips. Now, when I did my first one, I just cut the 5-inch strips. That's the way I did it. I think you probably you don't waste as much fabric doing it that way. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and cut up my 5-inch rectangles here, 1.5 by 5, and then we'll get sewing on these to make the 20. We'll make 20 of these sections right here. So I'm gonna get to cutting, and here we go. Okay, so I've got 20 of my black strips, which I may have told you too much. You may be able to get away with a 1/4 of a yard instead of a half, but just in case. So I cut 5-inch pieces. It's like this, 1.5 by 5. And you'll take 2 of your charm pack squares, just like I have them lined out right here where you can see, and you will sew these together as units. And I'm going to go ahead and sew one up, and so you can see what I'm talking about. It is easy just to go ahead and chain piece these. And I also wanted to remind you that, or make sure you check your charm pack or your carrot gem or your stacker, whatever the company wants to call them. Make sure to check if they are an actual 5-inch square. These weren't. These were quite a bit bigger. I had to go trim all the way around to make it a 5-inch squares because I don't like the peak in the valley. Make sure, to check if your peak is your 5 or if your valley is your 5, because you want to make sure you get an accurate measurement of your block so everything lines up. We want every point that we can to match, if at all possible. So I went ahead and cut all around all those. I stacked them up and did a few at a time. I went ahead and cut 20 1.5 by 5-inch rectangles to sew in between each of these. So I'm going to sew some of these together, and then I'm going to come back and show you what I'm talking about. You need 20 total. So I'm going to sew those up. And so you don't have to hear my machine because it's rather loud, I've been told. So I'm going to pause it here, and I'll be right back with my 20 units sewn up. Okay, I have attached the 1.5 inch by 5-inch rectangle to my 5-inch squares. I went ahead and I did chain piece. I did have to stop and change thread because I realized I was sewing on black with white thread, so that didn't work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clip these apart, and I'm going to press them, and I'm going to show you what they look like, and that way I don't confuse anyone. I want everybody to really know how easy this is. So I will go ahead and get these pressed, and I'll come back and I'll show you what they look like, and then I will show you our next step. Okay, I've sewn these units together. There's 20 here. I took my 5-inch square and sewed my 1.5 by 5-inch strip here to it to make this. I pressed towards the black, and my next step, I'm going to sew this to the other side, and it will make this unit right here, which is this unit right there. So that will be 20 of those. So that will use up all of my that charm pack, or carrot gems, excuse me, all but 2-inch or 2 5-inch squares. That's all I'm going to have left of that charm pack, but I still have the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these together, and I'm gonna keep them matched up as best I can. You don't have to. I didn't on here. There's some that are the same and some that are different. It's whatever you want to do. Like Lori Holt always says, you are the boss of your quilt, and I'm good with that. Okay, so I'll sew these together, and I'll be back and show you these units. Okay, I'm back. I've got all 20 of my units pieced together, and this is what it should look like. The next step is we're going to take 12 of our 5-inch squares, and we're going to cut them in half. So that'll give us 24 rectangles. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my 5-inch squares in half. I've got a Creative Grids ruler, which, you know, luckily has the big 2.5 mark on here, so it's easy to cut. This block right here will make this. Let's see if you can see it. Can you see this? It will go here. So it will actually end up connecting to one of these. So if you were going to make it scrap, or if you wanted to use maybe more of the fabrics that are like this in here, your big blocks, you could always cut those and use those as part of your connector. But I'm going to go ahead and do, and we'll cut all these up, and then I will be back with further instructions. See you in a minute. Okay, so I've got my 12 5-inch squares cut in half, so now they're 2.5 by 5. So that'll be a total of 24. Okay, the next step is to take 15 of your 5-inch blocks, 15, cut them in half. So I'm counting out the 15 that I want right now. And this will make this right here. The other connector will make this block right here. So that's what we're going to work on now. We just cut this. We've already got these sewn. So our next step is for these. So I'm going to go ahead and cut up my 15 squares here, so that'll make 30. And then you will need 15 of your black strips, the 1.5 by 5. So I'll get to cutting and I'll sew those up, and then when I come back I'll show you what I've got, and we'll be getting closer and closer. It won't be much more. Okay, I'll be back in just a little bit. Okay, I got my 15 5-inch squares cut in half to the 2.5 by 5 with, so that'll be 30 units now. It's be 30. I'm going to take 15 of the strips here, and I'm going to sew it down the middle of these strips. You can match your fabric if you want, or you don't really have to. It's, you know, you are the boss of your quilt. So it will look like that. I'm going to go ahead and sew these together, and then I'll come back and show you what exactly the units will look like, and then what we're going to do with them after we sew them together. So I'll be back after I go ahead and get these stitched up. See you in a minute. Okay, I'm about done chain piecing my block here. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you chain piece them and how easy that'll go. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go over here to my ironing board. I'm going to clip these apart, and I'm going to press them to the black. Okay, so I've sewn my unit together, and it will look like this. There should be 15 total units, and now what you need to do is cut that unit in half. So we want to cut it down this way. So I'm going to show you right here. I think you can see it in the camera. We want to turn it, get our 2.5 on our ruler, line it up with the edge. And I'm going to use a different ruler because that one's not big enough. So I'm going to use this Omni Grid. Find my 2.5 inch. line it up. You can also line up the black here with your line on your ruler to make sure you get a straight cut, as straight as you can get it. Because to me, this is a little bit crooked. And there we go. So I'm going to cut this 2.5, and I'm going to double check to make sure that I have got it right before I go cutting. So now you will have these. So you want to cut all of your units that you just sewed and pressed. You want to press towards the black so you can't see through, or that's what I chose to do. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all these units. I prefer to stand up. Probably cut 2 at a time, but I'm going to go ahead and just cut 1 at a time just to make sure, like this side looks a little bit straighter, just to make sure that I don't get anything off. So today, before I started making this video, I went out to clean out my pool a little bit because my dog, my corgi, he likes to go swimming and he sheds so bad and his hair will literally roll around the bottom of the pool. So I went out there and pretty much got attacked by a wasp. I got stung on the toe. This wasp was, he had it in for me, I'm telling you. So, yeah, we've got to take care of that. They're usually, I mean, we have them out there, but I've never got stung by one out there. They usually just bother you. This one, he was gunning for me. So, what a way to start your morning. I don't know what rulers do you guys use. You know, the rulers I have never used is the Quilter Select. Does anybody else use those? I've also never used a block lock ruler. And so maybe things to try. But I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting up. Well, actually, I only have about 3 more left after this one, I think. Let's get that even there. Yes, I did not shut my rotary blade. I know. I'm bad about not shutting my rotary blade. I will admit it. I will go into quilter's jail. And also, when I was sewing these blocks together, apparently this Juki does not like this black thread. I broke my thread at least 5 times. I had to rethread. I had to adjust my tension. It just does not like this black thread. So that's taken me longer. Okay, so now we have these. So what we will do next is you need to grab your 15 or 25 rectangles that you cut earlier. And then we're going to start we're going to start constructing this quilt already. That's how fast the cutting goes, as long as you don't break your thread, have to adjust your tension, and all that kind of stuff. It goes by pretty quick. Okay, so our next step is to sew the rectangle that you cut earlier. You cut 24 2.5 by 5 inch rectangles. You need to take one of those and connect it, sew it to this block. You will only need 20. You will have 4 left over. And I'll go over later why you will have 4 left over, but it really makes everything easy. So go ahead and sew those blocks together, and that's what I'm gonna go ahead and sew those. And then when I'm done with that, I've got my other blocks, my rectangle blocks, the focal fabric. It's up on my board. So when I get these sewn, I'm going to take them over there, and then I will show you what we will do next. Okay, this is what I have so far. We have 25 5.5 by 10.5 inch rectangles. I think somewhere in the recent past here, I said 30, but there's 25. I can count, but apparently I couldn't earlier. These were the 5 inch squares that we sewed together with the 1.5 by 5 inch rectangle here. And then we sewed the 2.5 by 5 inch rectangle here. Connected those, made this one piece. I have laid out what I think is going to be my layout to come up. So what our next step is are these, the ones that we sewed and then we cut in half. So all of these will go here, and all across all those empty spots is where they will go, including the top. So what I will do is I'll take each one of these and sew one of these to it, starting at the top and working my way down to the bottom. So they will all connect. And then after I do that, I'll be back and I'll have it laid out and show you what the next step is. Okay, so now I've got each of these units sewed on to my rectangle here. It's time to sew what you should have 5 of these units left over, and you should have 4 of these units left over, the 2.5 by 5. So what you want to do is take these 5 units and sew them to the bottom of this unit. So all the way across, and then your other unit sew to the bottom of this, and that will make another border for the bottom, just like we did at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sew the 5 units together for these, and then the 4 units together for these. And then I'll sew those together, and I'll be right back to show you how we do the side border. Okay, I got the bottom unit sewed on to my big rectangle, and also the bottom unit of this unit sewed on. So what I did also, I wanted to tell you, on all of these blocks with the big rectangle, I pressed towards the rectangle. These I pressed towards this piece. So whenever you go to sew these together, they will nest together for, in my opinion, easier piecing. So what our next step will be is we're going to get our side borders here sewn up. I'm going to cut them and show you each piece and how they will attach to the side. So I will be right back with that. Okay, so let's make the border of the quilt over here, the 2 side borders. Okay, what I have here is, I know you'll have, let's see, I think 14 or 15 of your squares left. So 1 unit will be just like the interior unit that I showed you. which will be these two pieces. We're going to make this unit again. So I've got these lined up and ready to sew. So this is 10 total squares and 5 of your black strips. We will need 12 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares. So of course you'll just take your 5-inch square, line up your ruler to the 2.5. I've already made 4 here. Turn it around. Line everything up. So now I've got a total of 8. So of my leftover 5-inch squares, I'm going to go through here and pick what other color or whatever pattern that I want. And I think I want this one. So I'm going to cut, you can see there, I didn't get that all the way cut off. 4 more 2.5-inch squares. So that will give me a total of 12 2.5-inch squares. So my next step, I'm going to go ahead and sew all these together. And, you know, I'm just going to let the video run and show you what I'm talking about. I don't know if you can see me all the way over there, but just going to go ahead and sew these units together, and I'm going to chain piece them. Okay, well, they didn't cut all the way. I've got these chain pieced together. I'm going to press them right now. Well, I'm going to go ahead and clip them apart. I'm going to go ahead and press towards the black strips. They're in the whole quilt, if I calculated right, there are 40 strips of the 1.5 by 5. So you can cut 40 and be safe. I think I said earlier in the video that it was, I used a half yard. I think it was only about a quarter of a yard. But, you know, just in case, you just never know when you may have a boo-boo. Because I'm sure we've all had them. So I'm pressing these towards the black. Now, I'm going to sew on the other side, connect this black strip with this. So we're going to make the units just like we made over there. I'm going to line this up, and then I'm going to chain piece these also. Make sure everything is lined up good here. And just so happens these patterns on this tone on tone, they will all match here. this one pattern here, you can see it is more of a directional, so I'm going to keep the directional with it. That's about probably the fussiest thing I've done with this. And also, you can still play with your layout of your quilt, you know, switching around the blocks for a long time, until you get that bottom row border sewed on. Then you're a little bit, you know, you can only switch that out with the top row. Well, for easier planning. I guess you can do it however you want. Okay, here's the last one. Okay, I'm gonna clip these apart. I'm gonna press them towards the black. Okay, so these are our 5 units. Now, this is how you make your border. Let's see if this ruler's long enough. You want to take the strip long ways like this. Get your 2.5 inch on your ruler. And cut them in half. So this will give you 10 2.5, should be by 10.5 inch strips. Make sure to line it up correctly. And you know, if you do have a boo-boo and maybe you cut wrong, because we've all done it, trust me, you still have 4 of your 5-inch squares left over. So if you have a mess up, you can fix it. So 2.5. I could probably stack them and cut them a little bit quicker. This block's a little crooked. But I'll just do them one at a time. Sometimes when you start stacking, I think they get a little off. This has got a little place in it. So cut your 2.5 inch strip here of your unit. And here we go. So now we'll have 10, the 2.5 by 10.5 inch strips. We have 12 2.5 inch squares. So I'm going to get my move over and show you how we will attach this border, these border pieces to the quilt, or to the blocks in the quilt. Okay, I tried to get the best view I could of the whole entire quilt. So now with your 12 2.5 inch squares, one will go in the corner up here, which I can barely reach. And then this strip right here will go right here. And I have to pin these because my air conditioner vent is right up there and it will blow them off. So our next step, so what I suggest to do is sew your 2.5 inch to this and connect it to this block right here. So you just keep going down here, put your 2.5 inch square along with this connector piece, another 2.5 inch square down here with this connector piece. This goes right here. So that is how we will do that. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to take one of the blocks over to my sewing machine and show you how I'm going to attach them. Okay, this is this unit right here. This is an outside part of the quilt, so we need to attach the border to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 2.5 inch square that you cut, and then this unit that you cut, which is 2.5 by 10.5, we're going to sew these together. I'm going to press this up towards the 2.5 inch square. Now I'll take this unit right here, and then I'm going to sew it to this. And I pressed my seam up towards the 2.5 inch square, so it should nest right with the rectangle block. I guess your focal block. I'm going to put a pin in here. And this is what it will make. So when we go over to the quilt, of course, it'll be turned the other way. So that is one block with the border sewn on. And I'll go ahead and do another, and then I'll move back over to the wall and show you what it's going to look like. Sometimes this tone on tone, it's hard to tell what side is what. Press up towards your 2.5 inch square. And this is actually, I think this is my top block. Line everything up as best as it will go. see on this unit right here, the seams, how they just match up. This one, on the other hand, I think I might have, I did bump it down. I thought I did. I don't know. I might tear that out. I might not. So this is the way you sew your units. And I'm going to take them over to my wall over here and show you how they will all line up. So I'll be right back. Hey guys, here it is. The quilt top is finished. I went ahead and added some borders. They're 4.5 inches wide. That makes the quilt top 55 1/4 by 70, so it's really close to a lap size. And so I wanted to go over also the pressing instructions. I pressed, or you can press going one way this way and then this way, so all your seams nest. That's what I would suggest. That works out really well. So what we had all together here was 2 charm packs. I only had 4 squares left over out of those charm packs. I had 1/4 yard of the black strips. I told you earlier a half, but 1/4 should be fine. But, you know, better safe than sorry. You hate to run out of fabric. And then the 25 5.5 by 10.5 inch rectangles. And my border, I end up using close to 3/4 of a yard for that. And, you know, if you had a yard, you could make your borders even bigger. So that is the pattern I wanted to share with you guys. I hope you like it. If you have any questions, just let me know and I'll answer whatever I can to help you out. But this is the Connecter Charm pattern. I did create it myself, so that's why it is simple. But it's a quick and easy project for big prints, maybe even some, I think I might try it with some Christmas fabric. Maybe even look around and see if I have any more of those panels that I like to use. That might work out. So if I do, I'll show you what I come up with for some more ideas for some maybe simple holiday projects coming up. And I really thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you would like and subscribe, and if you could share the video if you like the pattern, I would really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.